Hey guys, welcome back to Attack on Iron World. This is a very small reader, isn't it? Anyway, and welcome to a very spoopy version of Attack on Iron World. It's not actually that spoopy because, well, I was going to do like a spoopy item, but then I couldn't find one, and then I decided that it'd be stupid to get 10 levels on a spoopy item just because we want to get 10 levels on a spoopy item. But that's fine because we were going to tell a whole bunch of spoopy stories, right? And get all spooped up. Turns out I don't have any spoopy stories because I don't like spoopy stories. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, that's fine because we don't have to talk about spoopy stuff just because it's Halloween. That was the original plan, but I'm not a big fan of Halloween. So, you know what? Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the games that came out this month and how we thought about them, and then let's talk about some horror games. Talk about horror games. Yeah, that's good. Have a nice conversation about horror games. Right. What came out this week? What came out this time? Or not this week, this month. Shadow of War. I never got into it. Didn't like it. Hated it. In fact, actually, I stopped playing it completely because I got fed up. Yeah. Yeah. I want to tell you, it didn't click with me. It did not click with me. The first game, I loved Shadow of Mordor. This game was kind of poop. It wasn't very interesting. It's hard to believe, I know. Hard to believe. But, oh look, you know what, if we do that there, get off your own. Look at that, huh? Impressive. I don't. There was a lot wrong. There was a lot right with it, a lot wrong with it, and to be honest, the game itself isn't that bad. From like the standards of open world games, it's not a bad open world game. It's not awful. It's just not interesting. I mean, if the Lord of the Rings skin on an Assassin's Creed game interests you enough to keep playing it, I'd say that it is a decent game and you can enjoy that, which is good. But if that is not enough to enjoy it, then no, you won't enjoy it and you'll get bored, like I did. I got bored almost instantly. If you watch the Strife plays for a while on it, right at the end of the video, I'm like, I'm kind of bored, and that never went away. I was bored the entire time, and I pretty much deleted it off my PlayStation. I was like, you know what, this is taking up space, and I ain't gonna use this. So I stopped playing. I'm not sure how far I got. I want to say I got about half. Oh, see, I don't know how long it was. It felt like it was halfway. So I did a lot of side stuff, and it felt like it was halfway. But I was about. I think I was almost at the end. Like I was coming to like a climax of Act 2. And I just wasn't interested. So that was that basically. That was that, and I gave up and went and cried elsewhere. That's pretty much how that system went. No, I don't know. It's a weird one. Microtransactions didn't help it. I'll give it that. It wasn't the sole reason that I hated the game, but it definitely didn't help itself in any way by putting them in. That's for damn sure. But if I feel like don't buy microtransactions at all. It's becoming an issue. But I don't know. I feel like if they're in there, if microtransactions are in there, the least the game can do is keep it to itself, which it doesn't do very well. It keeps throwing it in your face. In the pause menu, there's like showing you microtransactions, showing you expansion passes, and all this, which is just completely irritating. And then there's the silver coins, which you have to spend to unlock gem slots, right? So you can't buy the chests, and then you cannot actually go into the market and buy these chests with your in-game currency, because if you do, you are immediately reminded by the fact that the in-game currency chests are instantly worse than the buyed ones, which you could argue is how it should be, but at the same time, it's irritating. You know, I feel like I should have the same rights. It doesn't feel fair. to the player who decides that he doesn't want to spend extra cash past his 40 quid on the game, or the player who can't afford them. Either way, which one, depending on which one you are, doesn't matter. I feel like it's kind of unfair to have these shitty ones. And it's immediately made clear just by the fact that it's a silver box instead of a gold box, right? So it's like immediately like, oh, you're getting the silver box. This is less shit than the silver box because it's shitty. It's a shitty box with full of shitty shits. It's like, well, great. That's nice. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad it's full of shitty shits. That's nice. You know, it's not a good situation. Another game that came out in October was South Park. South Park: The Stick of Truth. No, not South Park: The Stick of Truth. It was The Fractured Butthole, wasn't it? It's okay. I don't think it's as good as the Stick of Truth overall. The combat is not as interesting. It takes a lot. It feels a lot longer. It feels very long-winded, the combat in some fights. I played on Mastermind difficulty, so I don't know if that had something to do with the fact that the fights lasted a lot longer. But it wasn't very difficult either. It was quite easy. But that's not really an issue, because the main draw of South Park, of course, is a comedy, and that just wasn't there. And you could argue that, that Strife, you have not been a fan of South Park ever. We know, even in the video, you said you're not a fan of South Park, so maybe that game wasn't for you in the first place. And you know what? You're probably right. The game probably wasn't for me in the first place, regardless. However, the Stick of Truth, I loved. I loved Stick of Truth. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was very, very funny. It was like a very good RPG. It took a lot of jokes on RPGs that worked out very well, and I felt like the gameplay was satisfying and fun. Where the battle system in this one, whilst yes a bit more tactical, still quite easy. I would say that it's kind of not, I don't want to say boring, because it's not necessarily boring. I've already used that word to describe something. Wow, that chest is fucking immortal. It's, fuck's sake, how can I explain that? It's just not as satisfying, I guess is the word. It's like, for example, in the first game you could stack up bleeds, right? And then they could get hit by a lot of bleed damage, and that would, whilst yes being like arguably very cheap way to win, it was very satisfying, you know. It was a very satisfying way to win by doing stuff like that. And the timed combat in the first game was a lot better than in the second game, I thought. And it just didn't add up. And the jokes didn't quite hit me as what they did in The Stick of Truth. I found Stick of Truth very funny. I found this one very funny at times, but a lot of the times it kind of fell on deaf ears, you know. But I think it's still very unique. I think it's very unique, and it's very, if you like South Park, you're gonna love it. If you like The Stick of Truth but don't like South Park, I'd say don't bother. Wait till it's like a tenner maybe, and then pick it up if you're still interested. But if you're a big fan of South Park, it's definitely worth it. There's a lot of jokes in there that I didn't even really get, and my friend says that a lot of them are from the show. Like they're like callbacks or familiar things with the show. Like, I didn't even know what a Towley was, right? Like, I'm sure people who watch the show are like, oh, it's him, it's this guy, and I'm just like, the fuck is going on? You know? Where even in The Stick of Truth, when, not directly spoilers, but when you meet Mr. Hanky, who is like a Christmas poop, right? It's even because I already know who he is, right? I know who he is because everyone knows who Mr. Hanky is. But even if you don't know, you can immediately recognize what it is. You know, it's like, okay, fine, it's a poop, and it's Christmassy. Gotcha. And that's it, because there's a lot of toilets in South Park, and there's like a mini game where you go shit in them. So there's like already a connection there, right? But when it's like, here's a Tao that smokes a lot, it's like, I don't get it. It's like I don't get the joke. And it's like, well, anyway, it's like, okay, well, thanks for that. I think that's kind of, it's not necessarily its fault either. That should be said, is that it's not the game's fault. It's because it is the person. You shouldn't be catering, when you're making a game called South Park, you shouldn't be catering for people who have never seen or have a general dislike of the show, right? You should be catering to the people who love South Park and want to watch it and want to do that game and want to play in the world of South Park. That's who you should be meaning to. So I think it's a very good game. Mechanically, I think it's a very good game systematically, but it just wasn't for me at the end of the day. But what else came out this week? Super Mario Odyssey came out. I've not played it yet, but apparently it's pretty good. Apparently it's pretty damn okay. So that's exciting. Assassin's Creed came out, which, again, I mentioned in the previous thing. I've not had a chance to play it either. I will do, and when I do, I'll let you guys know what I think. But other than that, I'm trying to think what else came out this week. Not a lot, actually. I don't think anything else came out this October. Well, they did, and I just didn't buy them. Call of Duty came out, right? Is that good? I don't know. I've not heard nothing. I've not heard complaints, so I guess that's good. Thumbs up for World War II? You know? Who the fuck knows? I mean, Call of Duty at this point, it's a dying breed, I guess. I would say it's a dying breed. It's doing whatever it can to claw its way back to life, you know? It's interesting, because there was a time during Modern Warfare, where even I was into it, you know? And I'm not really the person who super likes shooters. My favorite shooter is Killzone. I've said this multiple times. I want a Killzone remastered of all 3 of the games from PS2 and 3 on the PS4, please. That'll be great, Guerrilla. Hell, fuck it. Put Mercenary on there as well from the Vita. And hell, fucking put that fucking strategy game you had up. That's pretty fucking. That was dope. Anyway, yes. So it was very much So even if I'm playing a first-person shooter, like, I feel like it's got some sort of hook, right? And I think Modern Warfare was doing quite well, because I played those story modes. I quite like the Call of Duty story modes. I'm quite into that idea of just like playing through a campaign that's kind of just quick, short, and like very spectacly, like big set pieces exploding and shit. Like, I think that's very, very good. Multiplayer, definitely not into. Killzone has the best multiplayer in all shooters. Don't care what you say. That's my opinion, and I don't think it can be changed at this point, unless I play one that's better. But it ain't happened yet. Yeah, well, I don't think anything else came out this month that I brought off the top of my head. I just gotta look forward to next month's. It starts off strong, man. Starts off strong. 2 RPGs right off the bat. Then we go into like Pokemon and all sorts of stuff. Very exciting for next month. Anyway, let's talk about some horror games, right? Let's talk about some horror games. I've talked about South Park and Shadow Mordor way too long. My favorite horror franchise, what would that be? Now that's difficult. Horror franchise is a tough one. It's a toughie. Because, like, what does a horror count as, right? Do we just count actual horror games? Or does dark fantasy count as a horror? Because dark fantasy is something that I'm really into. You know, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily count Dragon Age Origins, you know, stuff like that, and Darkest Dungeon as horrors. But I think they're definitely very scary, and they're definitely very intense. And, like, you know, I think games like that are much more interesting to me as generally horrors, because I'm not a big fan of horror games in general. I'm not a fan of the whole, hey, I want to be scared, I'm gonna go watch a movie. It's like, I don't want to be scared. What, like, I don't want to be scared. Why would I do that to myself? At least that's my way of thinking about it. Some people enjoy it, and that's totally fine. This arena looks like hell, but okay. Warning, pirates as well, apparently. Fantastic. But so I'm not gonna go into dark fantasies because I really, really like dark fantasies, but that I wouldn't necessarily count that as horror, even though I find them much more effective than horror games. Does that make sense? Where like dark fantasies, kind of like the Shin Megami Tensei games, Lucifer's Call, Digital Devil Saga, all that sort of stuff. I think they're much, much scarier than, for example, Resident Evil. Maybe Resident Evil isn't the best representation. I should say the early Resident Evils. Just because it's, if you're, and maybe that even that's a bad sort of thing, because the early Resident Evils I feel didn't really go for jump scares. Not as much anyway. But like jump scares, I'm not a fan of. They suck. But the jump scare itself doesn't scare me. It's the impending jump scare. That's what horror games have kind of become to me, right? As that which I guess you could argue is a good thing. Is like when playing a horror. You know, let's say Dead Space. Dead Space is a game I like very much. I love Dead Space. It's playing through that is interesting because there was multiple times where I had to stop playing Dead Space 1 because it was very jump scary, and I'm fine with a jump scare when it happens, because a jump scare, for those of you who have ever experienced a jump scare, it sucks because you're like, it's scary, and then you kind of like, you know, you fall on your butt and you're like, oh, and then you pat your chest a little bit and then you're fine, right? But the impending of a jump scare, that freaks me out, right? I don't like knowing a jump scare is gonna come around and I can't like predict it, and that's what freaks me out. But where Digital Devil Saga, you know, Lucifer's Call, fucking Dragon Age, Darkest Dungeon, all that stuff really nails is its atmosphere. Dragon Age Origins, I should say specifically, and when it was released, because I recently went back to play Dragon Age Origins on my PS3, and quite frankly the Darkspawn looked like claymation models, and I was very embarrassed that I used to be kind of like scared of the Darkspawn. But anyway, because I feel like the atmosphere is very, very important, right? It's very, very important. It's something that Dead Space does actually. The first Dead Space does very well. The first Dead Space does atmosphere very, very well, and you do feel quite scared as you play through, and that is very unique and very good. I'm told that the Resident Evil 7, is it the 7th, or the new one that's a VR thing as well, I'm told that's very good. That's very good for that sort of like atmospheric, like, oh, it's actually very, very scary sort of thing, right? Which is cool. It's not something I want to play, especially in VR, because fuck playing anything in VR for a start. Especially fuck playing like the super scary games in VR. Like, jeez, that's really messed up, playing some scary games in VR. I'm not about that. I'm too much of a wimp. Too much of a wimp for that sort of thing. But Resident Evil. Actually, no, hang on. We'll come back to Resident Evil. Let me finish my thought. I'm getting too excited. So yes, I think I much prefer dark fantasies because they're not necessarily scary, but you have a sense of foreboding about it. You have a sense of like a sense of horror. You have a sense of like dread whilst going through them, and that's much more appealing to me. Like I remember playing Persona 4, right? Playing Persona 4 for the first time on the Vita. I won't spoil it. But I remember I was laying in bed, right? Laying in bed, pitch black room, playing Persona 4, and one of the cutscenes was happening, and it's, like I said, I'm not gonna spoil it. Don't worry. If you've not played Persona 4, you should. It's really good. But it felt like this cutscene like filled me with so much dread. I was like you know, like to the point where you could like, I could feel myself breathing heavier. I was like, oh jeez, like it's scary, and not because I'm like actually terrified or anything like that, but I feel uneasy. You know, I feel uneasy and I feel uncomfortable, and that is very, very cool that a video game can do that to you. And that's what I think horrors should really go for, rather than just boo, you know? So that's at least how I feel about horrors in general. Some of my favorite horror games are, I guess, kind of controversial. I really like Dead Space 1. It is very, very scary. I really like Dead Space 3. Now, before you get upset about me, the microtransactions in it are dumb, and do not touch them. We can actually check what this guy sells before we go back. Oh, it's just Miss Crazy Exits and Divers. Diver 20s. Yeah, alright, we'll get two of those. We'll buy those. So yes, anyway. Dead Space 3, right? Now, before you throw a stick at me, saying, like, you're a bad person, how dare you like Dead Space 3? Now, I'm not a fan of co-op games, okay? But this game is very, very clever in the way it does co-op. Because stuff will happen to Player 2, or Player 2's screen will be fundamentally different from the person who's in number 1. Like, Player 2 will see a lot of blood on the floor, where Player 1 will not see it. And stuff like that, for example. It's been a while since I've played it, so I can't really remember all the exact things. And I wouldn't want to spoil it if you guys were actually doing that. If you have a friend who's willing to sit through Dead Space 2 with you, Dead Space 3 with you, I would say go for it. It's not super scary, okay? It's not very scary, because Dead Space lost all of its scariness after 2, and 2 basically was only scary because it had some weird moments in it that, with like eyeballs and shit, in my opinion. But Dead Space 1 is very, very scary. I very much like Dead Space 1, but it's very, very cool. Dead Space 3, that they like do this psychological twist thing with it, where the second player or the first player is like having these like psychotic breakdowns midway, and it's very, very cool. Right, I remember this. It's very, very cool. But regardless, you guys should do that, or at least watch a Let's Play. I'm sure there's got to be a co-op Let's Play out there. There's probably plenty. Like, that'll probably be just as interesting. I'm pretty sure that's what I did, because I should actually know. I've not actually played Dead Space 3 in co-op. I watched it, and I thought it was very, very cool. Anyway, another series that I really like is the Resident Evil series. Now, Resident Evil series, again, slightly controversial when it comes to horror games. My favorite Resident Evils are 5 and 6. They're my favorite ones. I played 4 very, very recently. I got about halfway, and I wasn't into it. It's not that it's bad. It's not that it's bad at all. I think it's very, very good, and I actually think it's kind of scary as well. But the escorting thing got to a point where I was like playing it for like an hour, right? And then the woman who you're with, I think Ashley is her name, she got picked up by an enemy, right? She got picked up by an enemy and the enemy was running away with her. I was like, shit, right? And I got dudes all around me. So I'm like, crap, okay, fine. Fuck, I need to quickly do this. So I shot at the guy carrying her, and I believe that I hit Ashley and she died. And the game pretty much put me back where I turned the game on. So I lost an entire hour from hitting a checkpoint. There was no checkpoint within an hour of gameplay. And I was so pissed off that I just turned the game off, and I'm done. Like, I was done. Like, I was so furious. But I was furious that I could even do that. The fact that I could even hit my own person was ridiculous. But anyway, I think Resident Evil 4 is fine. But again, that just made me rage quit. Maybe one day I'll go back to it. I know people, I don't think I've ever finished it. It's one of those games that I definitely feel like I finished it, right? Like, I feel like I've completed this game before. But playing through it, I remember fucking nothing. So I'm like, I don't remember this, I don't remember that. Like, constantly, all the way through, I was like that. But anyway, Resident Evil 5 and 6, to me are just comedies. They are so fucking funny, and they're so weird, and like Wesker is like the funniest fucking villain. And I know people think they're bad games, but they're really not. I would recommend you play those because they're not scary. They're really not scary. Especially 5 and 6. They're really not funny. They're not scary, but they're fucking hilarious. They're so funny to me. I don't know what it is. There's just something about them that are just perfect, and I just laugh my ass off at it the entire way through. Does that mean it's a good game? Does that mean it's a bad game? I think we can agree that it's kind of both. Like Sonic Adventure or Sonic Adventure Battle 2. I think they're not very good games. Like, I don't think they're very well designed, but I love those games. You know, I love them. Even although they're kind of shitty. You know, they're kind of buggy, they're kind of broken, but I love them. You know, so I guess maybe it's like that. And I guess that's kind of, when it comes to horror, I guess that's kind of it. Like, I'm looking at my shelf, trying to think of like, what other horror games that have I liked enough that I've actually brought and played all the way through. Does Dark Souls count as a horror game? I suppose that's Dark Fantasy as well. They're good games too. Sorry, they're very good games. You're not allowed to say they're anything less than a 10 out of 10, are you? No, they're very good. They're very solid 8s, I feel, the Dark Souls games. Now, Naya, that's a whole different game. Now, Neo and Bloodborne, they're 10 out of 10s. Well, 9 out of 10s. Maybe Bloodborne's a 10 out of 10. But I'll save this story for another time. However, Bloodborne made me cry. and not because I couldn't beat a boss. I had like a good emotional cry at that game. Neo, aside from some bad level design in some tiny places, I think that game is fucking phenomenal. But that's not what we're here to talk about here. We're talking about horror games. I'm looking at my shelf. I cannot find any horror games. I've seen Resident Evil 4 like 3 times, but I can't find a fucking horror game. Silent Hills, there you go. They're fucking scary. The Silent Hills, they're scary. I don't like those at all. They are too scary for me to deal with. I can't deal with Silent Hill. That's not something I can deal with at all. A horror game recently came out as well, right? The Evil Within. Like, that doesn't look very scary. I don't know if it is. Is it scary? It might be. It might be, but the trailers don't look very scary. So, I guess how can you convey atmosphere and a horror sort of sense in a trailer anyway? I guess that might be difficult to do. But, in any case. So, what level did we get this up to? We've done quite a bit on this, haven't we? Well, look, we hit a 5,000. 246. I feel... Well, I just got the weirdest sense of deja vu of those stats. I hope that's not a bad situation. Where is it? There it is. That's pretty good. Not... I should have focused on getting a few more of those innocents, shouldn't I? I didn't actually get any of them. It hasn't got any innocence. That's unfortunate. I should have done that. We had a chance as well. Bonus level, a whole bunch of them. We could have filled that out. Oh well. So yeah, I found this difficult. Because I'm not the horror guy, right? My partner, she loves horror films. I don't watch them. I'm either not interested, bored, or I don't want to scare myself. You know, a lot of horror films I think are very good and they are very, very scary, but it's not for me because it fucking scares the shit out of me because I'm too much of a wimp. I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to make myself scared. You know. But I guess horror games is a weird subject, really, because it goes like the very first Castlevania. Would you count that as a horror? Like, because in NES times, it was very hard to do a horror game, right? I wonder how they did it back in the NES. That would be tough. But I wonder when the first horror game came out. Probably like PS1 era, right? Like that's when the horror kind of become like a thing, yeah, with Resident Evil and Silent Hill and that sort of shit. I guess that'd be good. And I'm aware that there are like horror games, like all throughout the world. There are fucking tons of horror games, you know, like the Amnesias and all that sort of nonsense. But I don't play any of them, right? So it's such a hard topic. So this is also why this time of year I don't really enjoy. It's not my thing, and I find it hard to build content around it. So I decided basically not to really bother. But however, there is a video out tomorrow, and it is the scariest game a YouTuber can play. That's right. It's the scariest game. You won't see a scarier game for a YouTuber to play, okay? I feel like I'm building it up too much. That'll be up tomorrow at 5. I think it may be the only video up tomorrow, as I need to go do a bunch of more Fire Emblem right now, because I was a little bit ill the past couple of days. Now I'm feeling a lot better, feeling back in business, so I'm probably going to do some Fire Emblem right now. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys are enjoying Fire Emblem that is going on right now. Hope you enjoy tomorrow's spoopy episode, and hope you guys enjoy the videos going forward. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of horrors. And what's your favorite horror game? It doesn't have to be spoopy. Like, my favorite horror game is fucking Resident Evil 5, for fuck's sake. That's not scary at all. But anyway, you guys let me know how you feel about that. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.